What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. After a lot of homework and a lot of cafecito, here's part 2 of how the hell we got here. If you didn't get to catch part 1, that's fine. Please go back and watch it. And if you can, also, please do me a quick favor. Go down and hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. It'll let you know anytime I drop new content. And also, please comment, share, hit that like button. It all helps the channel. Now, if you want a quick Cliff Notes version of what happened in part 1, let me get you caught up. So in 2001, this lady took over as the president of the school. She restricts funding to the football program and really all of athletics in general, and we see ripple effects that affect the program all the way into today. And then because of that, it was just bad head coaching hire after bad head coaching hire. Let's start with the first one, Larry Coker. Of course, won a national championship in 01, but after that, bad player development, no budget, bad culture, lost control of the locker room, gone. In comes Randy Shannon. Bad player development, no budget, lost control of the locker room, gone. Al Golden, bad player development, no budget, lost control of the locker room, bad culture. Are you noticing a pattern here? So now we're caught up to 2015. Al Golden has just been fired after an embarrassing home loss to Clemson 58-0. Miami finishes 8-5 after a disappointing loss in the bowl game and thus begins a very important offseason in Miami history. I say this offseason is important for one big reason. Donna Shalala was out and in comes President Julio Frank. Now, Julio Frank is not a guy that has a ton of experience in the sports arena. He comes over from Harvard University, and so far, I think the man has done a solid job. When we began our coaching search before the 2016 season, a lot of big names came up. You had Butch Davis. You had Mario Cristobal. You, of course, had John Gruden. His name always came up in coaching rumors. So Miami would go on to make the bold move of hiring a coach who coached in the SEC for 15 years, won 6 division titles, won 2 conference championships, and averaged 10 wins a season in the best conference in America. That guy was Coach Mark Richt. Now, you can play the results all you want. I don't care what anyone says. I think Mark Richt was one of the best hires, if not the best hire Miami could have made at the time. But the guy comes in with a great pedigree. He's an elite recruiter. He can keep South Florida talent at home. And at the time, he was inheriting a very good quarterback in Brad Kaaya. So what happens during the Mark Richt era? Well, his first season was 2016. We got off to a hot 4-0 start. Of course, we had that heartbreaking loss to FSU at Hard Rock with a blocked extra point that led to a 4-game losing streak, but then Miami bounces back and finishes with 5 consecutive victories, finishing 9-4 and beating a very tough West Virginia team in the Russell Athletic Bowl, giving Miami their first bowl win in 10 years and putting a lot of hype into that 2017 season. Unfortunately, Brad Kaaya decides to enter the draft a year early. I, like many Hurricanes fans, thought that was a mistake for his career, but hey, he did what he felt he had to do. I think Miami's playoff chances would have been much higher in 2017 if Brad Kaaya stuck around, because I think he was starting to flourish a little bit, especially in the second half of that season in 2016 in that Mark Richt system. But I digress. Brad Kaaya, he takes off, but that's okay. Miami goes on to win their first 10 games of the 2017 season. And Mark Richt's career at Miami, honestly, it peaked in November of 2017 when they won back-to-back primetime games against Virginia Tech and Notre Dame. And not just beat those 2 teams, beat them convincingly on national TV for the world to see. Not to mention we had game day at our campus for the first time ever. I mean, that was a massive marketing tool and recruiting tool. But unfortunately, after that, the bottom fell out in year 3. We opened the season with an embarrassing loss to LSU on national TV. But then we do end up winning 6 in a row after that, so we kind of looked like we were starting to regain our footing. We had a terrible first half against FSU, but then an incredible comeback, which was a great victory at the time. Then after that, the struggles, the cracks in the dam started to show themselves. The offense really struggled the rest of the season, and we ended up finishing 7-6, capped off by an embarrassing bowl loss to Wisconsin. So after that, in kind of a surprise move, Mark Richt all of a sudden ends up stepping down. In my opinion, I think Mark Richt made 2 crucial mistakes, and they kind of went hand in hand. Mistake number 1, after spending 15 years at Georgia, mainly in more of a CEO role at that university, which he's very good at, he decides he wants to put the headset back on and he wants to call offensive plays at Miami. Now, at the time, a lot of people didn't think that was that big of a deal. He's a great offensive mind, but after spending so much time, so many years not calling plays, it takes an effect because his offense at times looked very archaic, very slow. College football really evolves year to year. Look at college football play calling 10 years ago and look at it today. It's two completely different things. Everyone's running more of an air raid kind of spread game, whereas 10 years ago, 12 years ago, that wasn't the case. Mistake number 2, N'Kosi Perry. N'Kosi Perry was a guy that was on the top of Mark Richt's draft board. He wanted that guy over everybody, and rightfully so. A lot of other schools wanted him too. He broke a ton of records in high school, super talented. He had a cannon for an arm, accurate, he could run. He had all the tools you can work with. N'Kosi Perry looked like the future. But I think N'Kosi Perry and Mark Richt was a square peg, round hole situation. I'll give you an example. Look at the Dolphins right now. Tua Tagovailoa, Coach Mike McDaniel. It goes to show you how valuable it is for the coach and the quarterback to have that ideal relationship where, first of all, the head coach shows he believes in his quarterback, and the quarterback reciprocates by putting in the work and really buying into that system. Also, I think Coach Richt kind of restricted N'Kosi's running ability and kind of tried to make him a lot more of a pocket passer than he really was. N'Kosi Perry was a playmaker. You got to let the guy be a playmaker. So, unfortunately, again, another head coach was on his way out, and this one hurt because I really wanted Mark Richt to succeed. Not that I didn't want the other coaches to succeed, but Mark Richt more than anybody, because it really seemed like it was a homecoming for a former Hurricane. He got so much success, and for it to get so high up and then crash and burn so quickly, it was a shame. So 2018, Mark Richt, he's out. So here's when things start to get really nutty and really started to show the fans that there really wasn't a lot of leadership at the top. Mark Richt steps down, and practically within 24 hours, Miami announces their new head coach, former DC Manny Diaz, who had just taken the Temple head coaching position just weeks before that. Now, I'll admit, some of us were excited, and in a way I was too, because I figured this would at least help maintain some continuity, because a lot of players on that defense, the Shaq Quartermans, the Mike Pinckneys, guys like that were, maybe thinking of leaving for the draft a year early. But this move convinced some of them to stay for one more year and, let's give this thing one more shot. Let's relive that great 2017 season. But the fact that he was in way over his head really started to show itself early and often. That plus, again, poor development plus bad coordinator hires in Dan Enos and Blake Baker led to the downfall of Manny Diaz within 3 years. And it wasn't just the poor game planning and the poor preparation and all that stuff going into games. It was just an overall lack of accountability in the locker room, on the practice field, which by now has been well documented. And again, this was the result of a poverty mentality and a panic hire by Blake James, to be honest. The poor leadership led to just a rotting culture deep down to its core. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to today, the Mario Cristobal era. And to be honest, guys, even the way the season's gone so far, this is still the most excited I've been about this program, dating all the way back to 2002 with that phantom pass interference call that cost us our 6th national title. Even being 5-6 right now, I think there's a lot of reason to be excited. And if you're still excited, I think there's actual reason to be. Let's look at the guy's track record. Goes to FIU. FIU was 0-12 the season before Mario Cristobal took over. He takes over in 2007. By 2010, he has that team winning its conference and winning a bowl game on national TV. As a guy who grew up in Miami, I never thought I would see Florida International University winning a bowl game. Then parlays that into an assistant job with Nick Saban at Alabama. I mean, there's no better guy to learn under. And while he was there, he was named the #1 recruiter in America. Then goes from that to a head coaching position at Oregon. Now, some would say that Oregon was in a pretty good spot. They just had that one down year of 4-8 because of injuries. But still, he goes there and they're 4-8. Obviously, some things were going wrong if you go 4-8, and Pac-12 isn't a super hard conference. So he turns that into a program that over the next 4 years would win 2 conference titles and win a Rose Bowl, which they hadn't done in years. And not just that, he cranked out multiple first and second round picks. Guys like Javon Holland, Justin Herbert, Penei Sewell, Kayvon Thibodeau, the list goes on. The dude not only was an elite recruiter, he also developed talent. That's a big reason right there why I think this regime is going to be very different from the past 3 or 4 of the past 2 decades. Player development is number 1, but number 2, and I think this is more important, because even if Mario Cristobal doesn't end up being the guy that takes us back to prominence, and when I mean prominence, I mean winning national titles and dominating again. That's okay, because the leadership at the top is now the kind of leadership that we need to have in place. Guys like Dan Radakovich, guys like Alonzo Highsmith, helping with, scouting and things like that, and bringing the right people into this locker room. That's massive. That's when culture change really takes effect. President Frank may not know a ton about sports, and you know what? He's come out and admitted this himself. But with all the great hires he's made recently and having the right people in his ear now at the top, he has made it very clear that raising the level of athletics at UM is a priority for him. And why wouldn't it be? It's great marketing for your school. It raises the level of admissions, and really it's a situation where the high tide raises all ships. So, in closing, even if Mario Cristobal doesn't end up being the guy, hey, that's okay. You got the right leadership at the top now. You got the right people. I think better days are coming. No, scratch that. I know better days are coming. And you know what? I think we're going to see it sooner rather than later, because the vision's in place, and I think these people that are in charge now, they want to win. And I think we will. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. Again, if you haven't checked out part 1, please go check that out. Please subscribe, hit that like button, comment, share with your friends. As always, it's all about that you. Go Canes.